Two black men travel back to the Middle Ages and are captured as slaves to be sold at an auction. Compared to the other strong black men, they appear delicate and soft-skinned. The white buyers come forward to inspect the slaves, but completely ignore them.
Il est fou, lui, il me touche les couilles.
Il a les dents du fond dans un sale état, et sa mauvaise haleine n'est pas gage de qualité.
Ça va, j'ai pas eu le temps de me...
Mais taisez-vous, bon sang!
In the end, all the other black men on the stage are sold, leaving only the two modern men behind. The seller, frustrated, lowers the price to just 1 coin, yet no one wants them. The seller then threatens to shoot them if no one buys them. Hearing this, Régis grits his teeth and puffs out his chest, trying to show off his muscles. Seeing this, Joël follows suit, imitating him. Eventually, a farm owner purchases them. Upon arriving at the farm, the owner gives them new names and assigns them work. Régis protests, saying there's been a misunderstanding. He actually has a job in town, but in the next second,
Quand un blanc te parle, tu ne réponds pas sans qu'il t'en donne l'autorisation.
Régis is completely dumbfounded. He can't understand how he ended up here. In his original timeline, Régis was a government official. His daily work involved meeting with other black citizens to address their concerns, while also enduring the unfunny jokes of his white superiors. One day, he received a call from his uncle, informing him that his father was critically ill and urging him to visit. At the airport entrance, Régis ran into his half-brother Joël. Joël had just finished serving a 3-month jail sentence for theft. He resented not only his own lineage, but also believed that all his failures in life stemmed from being black. On the bus, when the conductor asked him to buy a ticket, Joël picked a fight, accusing the conductor of looking down on black people, leaving the conductor completely baffled.
Ça n'a rien à voir, monsieur, on contrôle tout le monde.
Realizing he couldn't get away with it, Joël turned to his daughter for money, but she had none. He then asked her friend for money instead. The entire bus looked at him with disdain. Even the other black passengers found him embarrassing. When Joël got home, his mother scolded him harshly. In the end, it was their uncle's phone call that saved him from further humiliation. Even in front of his brother Régis, Joël kept up his bravado, claiming he had bought a house by the Seine in Paris and started a company that provided services for the elderly. Their car pulled up to an estate. They were finally about to see their father, whom they hadn't met in years. Their father was known for wandering around and had a habit of chasing after women. Yet, in the end, he only had 2 sons, Régis and Joël. With trembling hands, he reached out to them and said he had left behind a treasure for his sons.
Non, papa, pas maintenant, ne quitte pas tout de suite.
Qu'on lui ramène de l'eau! Quel trésor! Quel trésor! Quel trésor! Fatoumata!
As soon as he finished shouting those words, their father passed away. In the end, Régis and Joël did receive their so-called treasure, a slave emancipation document. Staring at it in disbelief, they couldn't understand what made it so valuable. Their uncle urged them to keep it as a reminder of the suffering their ancestors endured. But the moment their uncle left, Régis and Joël tore the document in half and sold each piece to a museum. The more they ripped, the more amused they became, completely unaware that an elderly woman nearby was watching them with anger. The old woman took a long drag from her cigarette and exhaled slowly. Suddenly, Régis and Joël lost consciousness. When they woke up, they had been transported to the Middle Ages. Before they could process what was happening, a black man sprinted past them. Panicked and confused, they tried to run as well, but it was too late. They were captured. On the way back, they assumed the captors were police officers. Joël pulled out his phone, trying to record what he believed was another case of police brutality against black people. Meanwhile, Régis attempted to negotiate, hoping to talk his way out of the situation, but their captors ignored them completely and took them straight to the market. Eventually, a farm owner bought them. Joël was sent to the fields to work, while Régis, being slightly lighter-skinned, was assigned to the kitchen. Look, this slave has a phone. The camera lens pointed toward 2 men seemingly engaged in something indecent. However, in reality, they were simply eating sugarcane. Finding the scene amusing, Joël recorded it. Now stuck in the Middle Ages, he had no choice but to work a 9-to-5 labor routine. For someone used to an idle lifestyle, this was a tough adjustment. Whenever the overseer was around, he put on a show, swaggering past with 2 sugarcanes on his shoulders, pretending to be hard at work. Suddenly,
Ligament croisé. Ah, ça m'avait déjà fait ça en 98 contre Fontenay.
the overseer raised his whip, ready to strike. Joël immediately sprang up.
Ça va mieux, ça va mieux, ça va mieux, ça va mieux.
Joël accused the overseer of targeting him just because he was black. The overseer scoffed, replying dismissively, "Isn't that obvious?" The food given to the enslaved workers was awful. Joël took one bite and spat it all out in disgust. Meanwhile, Régis had slightly better conditions working in the kitchen. However, he had to endure the dull and offensive jokes of the white men every day, making him feel like life was unbearable. One night, the two brothers hatched a plan to escape the plantation. But just as they reached the main gate, a terrifying ghostly face appeared before them. The next morning, they overslept and were punished with another brutal beating. And so, their exhausting new life continued. Every week, a priest came to preach. Geese, being more tactful, began to blend in. Joel, though constantly complaining, started following Geese's lead. After one sermon, Geese questioned the priest, "If God says all men are equal, then why are there still black slaves?" The priest silently flipped open a page of the Bible and showed it to him.
C'est écrit là. Les Noirs obéiront aux Blancs.
Ah non, là c'est écrit Jésus était entré chez les pharisiens pour y prendre son repas.
The priest froze. He hadn't expected Geese to be literate. His deception was exposed. Flustered, he angrily dismissed the enslaved workers and dragged Geese before the plantation owner. Seeing Geese's intelligence, the owner realized that putting a black man in charge of the others would be more effective. And so, he promoted Geese to the position of overseer. Meanwhile, outside, chaos was unfolding. Joel, having arrived late, was beaten down by the overseer. Wiping some yellow dust onto his face, he finally snapped. Right in front of the overseer, he turned and started running. But then, Joel was captured and strung up, whipped mercilessly. He refused to back down, cursing and shouting defiantly.
Liberté! Égalité! Nique ta mère!
In the end, Joel was beaten so badly that he foamed at the mouth and had to be helped down. As the black women on the plantation tended to his wounds, one of them remarked that he was different from them. Joel was thinner, had softer skin, and his hands lacked the calluses of hard labor. It was clear that he had lived a comfortable life before. Joel scoffed. He had never imagined that his past life was something others might envy. Meanwhile, Geese, now an overseer, began throwing his weight around. The next morning, he marched over to wake Joel up for work. Annoyed, Joel glared at him, and in the next second, in the end, Joel reluctantly got out of bed. He called Geese a traitor, but Geese replied that neither of them knew how to return to their original time. The only thing they could do was work well for now and figure out a way to escape later. Confused, Joel still took Geese's words to heart and began working for him. Geese successfully repaired the bridge and went to inform the owner. In his moment of pride, he even patted the owner's back. The owner, holding back his frustration, remarked that Geese was a smart black man who could read. However, another white man sarcastically added,
Sait-il aussi jouer du piano?
Geese couldn't hold back any longer. He walked over to the piano and began to show off in front of the room full of white people. As he played, he sang along confidently. The white people were stunned, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Then, at the time, black people weren't allowed to touch a piano without permission. Geese, having only been an overseer for less than a day, couldn't take it anymore. Taking advantage of when a Jewish man came to deliver goods to the plantation, Geese and Joel secretly climbed into his cart. The Jewish man noticed them but said nothing, continuing to drive them back to his home. Geese was still uncertain, but the Jewish man explained that their situation wasn't much better either, and he wanted to help them. As they spoke, the plantation people arrived with hunting dogs. The Jewish man told them to leave through the back door. The brothers ran wildly through the woods and across streams, the plantation people hot on their heels. When they broke out of the woods, they were met with the vast expanse of the ocean. Scanning the area, they spotted a small boat. The two enslaved men managed to escape the clutches of the plantation, found the boat. They looked back at the pursuers on the shore, mocking them and laughing. However, they didn't notice a large ship approaching nearby. The men aboard the big ship hauled the brothers aboard and led them into the ship's hold. It was only then that Geese and Joel realized they had been brought onto a slave ship. Their journey took them back to the slave market. The brothers couldn't help but sigh at the cruel twists of fate. The men who had been chasing them brought the brothers back. They stopped to rest during the journey. One of the men went off to search for food, leaving the other to watch the brothers. The man fixed his eyes on the brothers' feet, his hands itching to reach out and cut them loose. Just then, a scream pierced the air from deep within the forest. The man searching for food had been killed. Soon, numerous painted black figures emerged from the woods, escaped slaves. They killed the white man and rescued the brothers. Later that night, the leader of the runaway slaves rallied them for an uprising. Everyone present, including Geese and Joel, was stirred and joined in shouting with fervor.
Est-ce que vous êtes prêts à vous battre jusqu'à la mort? Ouais! Est-ce que vous êtes prêts à vous battre pour la race noire? Ouais! Ouais! Est-ce que vous êtes prêts à massacrer tous les blancs? Non! Ouais!
It was awkward, Geese stammered, telling them not to take it too far. However, the black people started moving closer to him. Realizing the danger, the brothers began running again. After much effort, they managed to shake off the group of pursuers. At dawn, Geese woke up and saw the same old woman who had been at their father's house. It suddenly dawned on them. This was the woman who had brought them here. The old woman explained that if they wanted to return to their original time, they needed to find their ancestors. She then smoked her cigarette and went home. Joel was stunned because the man the old woman mentioned was the same strange man he had photographed. Geese didn't believe it, so Joel showed him the photo. In the picture, the man really was eating sugarcane. But then, as the realization hit him, Joel understood. They were sent to help their ancestors and ensure the survival of their bloodline. The biggest problem now was how to get back to the plantation. Geese reassured him, mentioning that he had negotiation skills from working in the city hall. Then, a few days later, a wedding was held at the manor. The workers outside were singing and dancing in celebration. The two brothers split up their tasks, each one getting someone drunk. Their great-grandmother turned out to be the girl who had once drugged Joel. As Joel kept pouring drinks for her, things nearly took a disastrous turn. Fortunately, Gis noticed in time and pulled them apart. The brothers then carried the two elders to a warehouse and personally helped them, finally completing their mission. Just as Gis was about to light his pipe and leave, Joel stopped him, saying that leaving like this was letting the white people off too easily. Gis immediately understood his meaning. Arrogantly carrying their tools, they strutted out with defiance. The two brothers barged into the white people's house, knocking a silver cup off the table. Joel even leaned in and gave the bride a passionate kiss. Everyone was stunned, yet no one dared to move. When the overseer rushed over with a gun, the brothers remained unfazed. In front of the crowd, they lit their pipes and waited for something to happen, only to realize nothing was happening at all. Now they were completely dumbfounded. The brothers were quickly captured and thrown into the dungeon. Furious, the master of the house ordered their execution at dawn. As death loomed closer, the brothers stopped their usual bickering and began to share their true feelings. Life had not been easy for either of them over the years. As they spoke, they held each other tightly. Then, Joel suddenly dropped a shocking revelation.
En prison, je me sentais tellement seul. Un soir, avec mon co-détenu, ça a dérapé.
Gis froze for a moment, then let go of Joel. At dawn, the overseer came to take them away. The brothers were tied up and hung, their eyes tightly shut as they braced for death. Just then, the master's child fell into the river. Everyone rushed over to save him, everyone except the brothers' ancestors. Instead, they knocked out the overseer with a punch, untied the brothers, and set them free. The two brothers sprinted toward the river. When they arrived, they saw the struggling child. Without hesitation, Gis jumped in to save him, while Joel took his time undressing before finally diving in. The moment he hit the water, he suddenly remembered he couldn't swim. Thankfully, Gis managed to rescue both him and the child. The master sighed as he watched them. By all rights, he should have had these two executed, but they had just saved his child. In the end,
Vous êtes libre.
Joel was ecstatic, but Gis fell into deep thought. He voluntarily offered to stay behind, asking the master to let their ancestors go. He had finally understood. His ancestors needed to build their own lives so that there could be a future. The master agreed. Joel initially planned to leave first, but in the end, he chose to stay at the manor for Gis. The next day, the brothers bid farewell to their ancestors. The overseer approached and mocked them. As he lit his pipe and exhaled a slow puff of smoke, he suddenly realized the two men before him had vanished. Gis and Joel had returned to the modern world. Joel was no longer carefree and irresponsible. He started working, and his once chaotic family became whole again. Gis, on the other hand, put his joking boss in his place, teaching him the meaning of respect. The brothers often gathered together, never forgetting the hardships their ancestors endured. They knew that this freedom had come at a great cost, and they would carry its memory in their hearts forever.